Thank you, Jeff. And good morning again, everybody. I hope you brought your books with you, or have access to your guide, if you will. We're going to be starting. We're now in part 2, and I'm also hopeful that all of you have completed part 1. Are there any folks here that have not completed part 1 yet? Just kind of raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. So we have. Okay. So that's okay. We sometimes run into that situation, but I will be on occasion, or not just me, but some of the other facilitators too, may occasionally refer back to what happened in part 1, so that just so don't feel bad. Okay, you can read up on that, but we certainly encourage you to attend part 1 as soon as you can. Jeff, if you'd go ahead and bring up my Rotary opportunities. Just going to do that. I have a Mac computer, and for some reason, I'm going to blame it on the computer. I cannot share my screen. I don't know why, but it can't. So Jeff's going to do that for me. So we're going to start with this, but before we do, and again, apologies to those of you who have not done part 1, but I just want to remind you that back when you did, for those of you who did take part 1, there was a section there called My Rotary World, and there are links between the sections. That's why it's nice if you can get them in the order that they are presented, 1, 2, and then 3. So My Rotary World in part 1 introduced you to Rotary, introduced you to the purpose of Rotary, understanding the Rotary structure, all the way from the club, all the way, through the district, through the zone, all the way up to the leadership at Rotary International. Talked about how it's organized, the strategic plan of Rotary, and so on and so forth. A good background. What I'm going to be doing today is talking to you about other opportunities that are available to clubs. And in particular, there's about 10 of them or so. I actually lost count. But we're going to be talking about a number of different opportunities that are available to you, to your clubs, to further your Rotary opportunities as we move along. And so what I'm going to do is very quickly here introduce you to this lesson, Rotary Opportunities, and we'll start up there at the top, right underneath the title there in our participant guide. It says, as I further my Rotary journey, I can explore the many opportunities available within Rotary for personal, community, and professional growth and development. So we're going to talk about some of these opportunities. Our session goals then are to provide an overview of the different Rotary International structured programs that are available to us as Rotarians and our clubs. We'll also talk about the benefits of a global networking group, the benefits to you. If you've never heard of that, we'll talk about what that is, global networking. And then we'll discuss each program's relation to Rotary's goals, if we have time to do that, to the Rotary's goals and to the Rotary experience and as a Rotarian. And so what I'd like to do is, one of the advantages if I go back and think about when we first started doing this, when COVID showed up and we could no longer do live meetings, and we started doing online training. One of the things that worried me a lot was, gosh, we got so many people online. Generally, we like to keep the numbers down so that we can have more interaction. But there's also a lot of good, and there's a lot of good things that happen because we do have so many of you to share with. The problem is we won't have time for everybody to get really involved, but we'll certainly do our best. But one thing that is useful by teaching online is that I can do one thing. There's one special thing that I can do with you guys that I can't do it live, and that is you can all respond at the same time if I ask you a question. And we're going to do that right now because I'm going to ask a poll question about the different Rotary opportunities that are available. Jeff, would you please bring up the poll question? Okay. From the following list of Rotary programs, these are the ones we're going to be discussing. Please select any that your club participates in or that you are familiar with. And I will say this, after I wrote this, I said, I probably should have just stuck with familiar. I'm mostly interested to know which one of these things you are familiar with. So please put a mark in there or select any of these that you are familiar with, and perhaps that your club is also participating in. And then I'll tell you what, once we see the answer, then go ahead and submit that. And then Jeff will show us how it came out, and that'll determine the order in which we're going to discuss these. So please fill out your poll question.
Okay, there's still a few people who haven't responded. Let's give it about another 15 seconds.
Okay. I even have one too that I submit.
Got it.
Okay, Jeff, and what we're going to do is the ones that we see the least, for example, Rotary Community Corps. I'm going to do that one first. Rotary Community Corps, that one. Looks like Rotary Friendship Exchange. What is that? Rotary Action Groups will be 2. Then Friendship Exchange is 3. Let's see. Then Rotary Fellowships. Friendship Exchange. Well, actually, Friendship Exchange should probably be 4, and Fellowships will be 5. Interact and Rotaract. So, and then RILA and Youth Exchange will be last. Okay. Okay, very good. All right. So first one with the, and had we been doing this according to the way that Rotary has set up this particular lesson, I would have simply thrown out, because if you were in a live training, we might have 6 people in the class. And so, and I'd ask each one of you, okay, tell me what you think about this. What are Rotary International structured programs? Okay, but now I've got that answer in just a minute. And so instead of waiting around for 30 or 35 people to answer, we got it pretty quickly. So that works pretty well. So what we're going to do now is let's start with, because some of you did answer this, the Rotary Community Corps. For those of you who said that you do have some experience with Rotary Community Corps, would you mind sharing that with us? And raise your hand if you'd like to tell us what you know about Rotary Community Corps. Not all at once. Raise your hand, anyone? So, somebody said they knew something about it. It doesn't make it just what you know, just tell us what you do know about it.
Beverly raised her hand.
Okay, Beverly, go ahead.
There's actually a couple clubs. My club doesn't have it, but there's several clubs in our district that do have a Rotary Community Corps. And it looks a little different in each one. One of the clubs had a large group of developmentally disabled adults that I'm not sure whether they got together Karen may even know, at a community center together, and the club developed a whether you want to call it a satellite or whatever, but it was Rotary Community Corps of these individuals, and there was about 25 of them, and they would do projects, or they would work on blankets or things, and they had so they were like working to help the community, but this was also helping this group of individuals to have a community amongst themselves and really be able to feel valued parts of the community. And started as a Rotary Community Corps. It actually has now changed to a satellite of another Rotary club. So it's even gotten more official within Rotary. And then another club also had, it was a youth, more of a youth oriented. So not really interact, but it was, again, people who wanted to make a difference in their community. It was a group of people, but they didn't necessarily want to join the Rotary Club or have the funds. One of the clubs was rather expensive in Boulder. And so they developed a community core there. So that's what's happened in 5450.
That's great. Oh, thank you, Beverly. That's outstanding. The things that I wanted to make it to bring out from Beverly's presentation there was that the key is that Rotary Community Corps, these are non-Rotarians. They're not members of a club, but they're club sponsors. A community corps a Rotary Community Corps has to have a sponsoring club to help them get organized, to help them obtain funding. They may be able to get grants to help them, and you know, but they're doing good in the world, but they're not Rotarians. They may end up being, like Beverly pointed out, now that group is a satellite. Is that right? Okay, super. Thank you very much. Anybody
Yes.
else? Would anyone else like to share real quickly before we move on to the next program?
Bruce, I have a question.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Is this similar to the Rotary alumni? You know, people
No,
who aren't Rotarians, but they have worked on a project or something?
Oh, they could, yeah, they could be, but Rotary alumni often show up in a different way, and that is with Rotary action groups. Okay, they're similar but not the same. Okay, because they are. We'll talk about Rotary action groups next. So hold that thought.
Bruce?
Yes.
Rotary alumni are actually anyone who's been a youth exchange or RILA, or they've gone through a Rotary program, a grant recipient, ambassadorial scholar. That's what Rotary International considers for real Rotary alumni.
Yes.
All of those people that maybe your district touched in some way and would be great Rotarians, but somehow we lose track of them.
Yes,
so,
and
so they're different than Rotary action groups, Bruce. Just wanted to.
But a Rotary action group, that's who's in. Yeah, Rotary alumni are usually involved with Rotary action groups.
A lot of times, yeah.
That's right. That's what, and that was going to be my next point. But I wanted to see if there was anybody else that had anything to share about the Rotary Community Corps. Anyone? 2, 3, 1, going once, twice. Okay, sold. The next one I wanted to talk about then was going to be Rotary action groups. And Rotary action groups, as Beverly was pointing out, and it was also mentioned, Rotary action groups are formed as opposed to the Rotary Community Corps, which are purely non-Rotarians. It's possible that there could be an Rotary alumni in a community action corps, or excuse me, community corps. And by the way, there are more than 6,400 of those, what they call RCCs, all over the world, 76 different countries. All of those are organized and sponsored by Rotary clubs. Likewise, when we talk about Rotary action groups, now we're talking about people that are more closely related to RI. And Rotary action groups, and I just happen to have some information about that. Rotary action groups are, well, first off, let me ask a question. Does anybody here, some of you marked that you knew what Rotary action groups were. Would you like to share with us what you know about Rotary action groups? Because I want to get as many of you involved as possible. So raise your hand and okay, Dean, I see your hand and I'm going to check real quick to see if somebody raised their hand on this side. No, okay, Dean, you got it. Tell us what you know about Rotary Action Groups.
Well, we have a Peace Builder Committee, and we belong to the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And basically what it is special interests that we need to do work on. And we're trying to develop some training on peace and things, especially in these political times. I think it would be a very useful thing.
Okay, very good. Now, what kind of people are in your action group? Are they Rotarians or are they
They're Rotarians.
alumni? They're
Right.
almost
They're
all
Rotarian.
Okay. One of the things that I learned is that Rotary alumni are also very useful and are invited to join Rotary Action Groups. Just looking to see if I had that written down somewhere. So a little bit more to build on what Dean was saying. Rotary Action Groups help Rotary clubs and districts plan and carry out community development and humanitarian service projects in their area of expertise. So what you're looking for when you're building an action group is you're looking for people that have experience or they have certain skills that are needed for whatever the task is that you want to do with them. Is that correct, Dean?
Yeah, and the action groups are international. So we have a headquarters for the Rotary Action Group out, I think it's in California somewhere.
Okay.
And there is a coordinator that has activities. There's things that go on online that we can participate in. And so it's just a matter of promoting peace, basically.
Right.
And it's run by somebody who was a fellow, Rotary Peace Fellow, which it supports the peace fellowships.
Very good. Some other specifics about action groups. Action groups are actually very formal. They're almost like a club. Each group functions independently of Rotary International. But they establish their own rules. They have dues requirements. Is that the case for you, Dean?
Yes.
And they have an administrative structure, and let's see what else. They have to adopt Rotary International standard bylaws and operate in accordance with Rotary policy. So, and again, as Dean was saying, Rotary Action Groups regularly collaborate with clubs and districts on service projects. In this case, it's peace, the one that Dean is involved with. And I will go ahead and give you a reference. If you turn in your book and to RO5, Rotary Opportunity 5, and on my book it's 11, but it's probably page 10 on yours. You have an information about the Rotary Action Groups, and on the next page, Jeff, can you go ahead and bring up RO5 for me?
1 second.
Okay. And it'll be it's page 12 on the instructor guide, on the facilitator's guide, but I'm not sure what it is on there. Okay, keep on going. Further, that's RO1. We want to go to 5, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, next page after that. There we go. So at the top of that page there as a listing of all the Rotary Action Groups that are currently in force. So you can get an idea of the sort of service that they are providing. Things all the way from AIDS and family health, blindness prevention, blood donation. Child slavery is a big one. This is, I think, going to be once we get polio under control, my guess is that's where we're headed with Rotary. Disaster assistance, there's all kinds of things. And again, what they're looking for is Rotarian action groups. Let's see, it's open to all Rotarians, their family members, as well as participants and alumni of all Rotary and Foundation programs. And my guess is if there's other people that want to be involved, and Dean, you can help me out here. Do you have to be a Rotary alumni or a family member or something like that to be part of I know in yours, it's all Rotarians, correct?
Right, right, it is.
Yeah, but I wondered if if you needed a specific skill in order to do whatever it is that you're going to be doing as a group, could you go outside of the Rotary boundaries and find that person if they were?
I really don't know the answer to that question, because I've just joined and it's a great group, and we have good guidance from the Rotary Action Group for Peace.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I'm not absolutely sure about that, but my guess is you probably could.
Yeah, Bruce, a lot of the groups work with national entities and other NGOs, in their area. I belong to the water and sanitation group, and we do call on others in their
Okay,
expertise.
as needed to get the skills that are and knowledge that are needed to complete the tasks. Very good. Okay, let's move on.
Bruce, if I might
Yes.
just add, I was doing some research on this a little earlier last week, and the only thing I found is that Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Rotary Peace Fellows are the only ones that can serve in leadership roles. So
Right.
it sounds like it's open to membership to anybody.
Oh, okay. Okay. I missed it. They're the only ones that can do what? They can open a,
In leadership roles.
a leadership roles.
Like
I got you.
president. Yeah, that's our thing. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Similar, there's some similarity to that and the Rotary Community Corps, even though the RCCs have can have no Rotarians involved. They may, but they are sponsored by a Rotary Club that can provide them with help, assistance, and so on. All right, let's move on. Jeff, can you look at our poll question? What was, I got a little confused there. What was the third least?
I think it was Friendship Exchange.
Friendship Exchange. Friendship Exchange. Okie dokie. All right. So with Friendship Exchange, is there anybody there that's been involved with Friendship Exchange? Got to have somebody here that's been on it. Dan has, and Kathy has. Let me go to the other side here because I can't see everybody. Anybody? Okay, Dan and Kathy. Friendship Exchange. Fernando.
And Renee and Fernando.
Okay. And all right, let's hear from Fernando. Can you tell us about the Friendship Exchange? And where did you go?
Yeah, it's a great initiative by Rotary. We went to the first time we went to England. It was a fantastic experience. It is very different to have an idea about the British way of being and a British sense of humor. Honestly, it changed my perspective from that people significantly. We had a wonderful time. We went to meetings. Well, the idea of Friendship Exchange to begin with is to go and spend around 10 days in different parts of the country, and it's district by district. So in different parts of the district, you stay at Rotarians' houses, and you stay at their homes for 2 or 3 days, and you rotate in three days in every house. And then they come to your district and they go to different cities. And so you go to their meetings, you go and visit their activities. It's such a wonderful way to really get to know other cultures or other people and to see another similar but different ways, the way they approach Rotary. It is so fascinating, and it's so rich opportunity. I also went to South Africa, and again, it was so amazing. I didn't know anything about South Africa, and it's really a fantastic country, and we developed fantastic friendships. And to these days, we still exchange, Christmas cards and as much as we can from WhatsApp videos to whatever, because we really developed good friendships with these people, and you get to learn different ways of doing Rotary, to put it that way. So it is a fantastic program. We wish that everybody could really do it sometime to anywhere. I mean, I guess I've heard of people that go to many different countries. unfortunately, with COVID, it's just impossible. And well, our last president, we apparently some countries didn't feel very open to keep exchanging because of political reasons. Some countries cancel, but it's a fantastic program, and Donna Pedacci does a great job to spreading the word, and hopefully we can restart it sometime and start having some visits and having some friends over. We hosted in our house some people from Sweden, and also, you get to know them better. It is a great program. It's one of the best, I guess, kept secrets because not a lot of people know about it. But hopefully, we get to spread the word and get to visit more people around the world. It's a great program.
Well, thanks, Fernando. Dan, do you want to add anything to that real quick, and then we'll move on?
I think that's the joy. You go to the other country or they come here and then you exchange. You change that around. But mostly stay in the homes of other Rotarians. You get a real view of a culture and a world rather than a tourist view. And, I know the Swedes in the late 90s, they all wanted to tell Clinton jokes. And it was just, it's a friendly thing. Our last group through our club were from Russia, and that was also a great learning experience. So,
okay, thanks very much. The key here is these are Rotarians and their families who are given the opportunity to travel abroad, stay with other Rotarians, learn about their countries, learn about their customs, and so on and so forth. But there's a quid pro quo, and that is that when those folks come to the United States, then you are asked to host, so that's the exchange part. Is that true, Kathy? You were involved in that too, right?
Yes, sir. And I did post a chat there then that I've not personally been anywhere, but hope to. That was one of my hopes when I retired. But our club has hosted folks from other countries, and also within the United States. So we've gone to New Braunfels area, and I think up to the Pacific Northwest area. So doesn't have to be just international.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a question, a couple of questions. Nikki, I think, asked how is it funded? You pay your own expenses pretty much. It's the cheapest way to travel around the world because you pay for your trip. I mean, basically your airfare and the meals and some of the I guess in South Africa, we got to visit a national park or a area, and we went to safaris and all that. We pay for that, of course, but were some other things that the clubs sponsor for us, like they will take us to dinner or something. Sometimes they would pay for us, but it's not a fixed rule that they have to pay for something. But it's pretty open to the country, and I guess you adapt a little bit, and they adapt. It was kind of interesting when the Indian people, because there were some people from India were going to come and we were going to host them. They asked to host because I'm a vegetarian, and they were having, kind of trouble to figure out how to help them in their vegetarian diet. I guess you have to kind of adapt to the people that are coming and adapt to wherever you go. I mean, there were some people in our club who went to India. They had a wonderful time, but it was a interesting experience also. But I mean, that's just another comment.
Well, thanks, Fernando. Okay, we're going to need to move on because I've got my deal is that I've only got 9 minutes left before I have to turn it over to the next presenter. But so let's go back to where we are next, which is Rotary Fellowships. That was the next one, I think. Anybody very quickly, anybody participate in the fellowships? I do. I'm a member of a flying fellowship because I was a pilot in the Air Force. But is there anybody else out there that's a member of the fellowship or knows what the fellowships are like and can talk about it briefly, what the fellowships are?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, go ahead, Gordon.
I'm a member of the Rotary Ski Fellowship. We just joined that about a year ago. And it's an opportunity to participate in a function for fun. This was skiing, and the interesting part about the fellowship, it includes people from all over the world. The Ski Fellowship has one event in North America and one event usually in Europe, where we ski. But in addition to that, we also do some form of good. And the one that we participated in last year in Sun Valley, we had a silent auction that generated quite a bit of money to support a program for skiing for people with disabilities. So that's one aspect of a fellowship club. It's not just for fellowship, but you also try to do something useful in one area.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Gordon. Would anyone else like to share?
Bruce, there's a good question from Dean asking, how does a person find those opportunities for friendships?
Actually, you can go, if you look, first off, you can find out, you can see the list of Rotary Fellowships and insert RO3. I'm not going to go there now because we're running out of time. But all of the current fellowships that are in existence, at least when this was produced, are listed in RO3. And all you need to do is Google Rotary Fellowships, and it'll take you to the Rotary Fellowships homepage. And you can learn all about fellowships and what the fellowships are and how to get involved. I did that. I'm a musician as well. And so I signed up years ago to be part of the Musicians Fellowship, Musical Fellowship. And it's just people that have common likes, things that they like to do, things that they're, hobbies and so on and so forth. There's RV Fellowship, Golf Fellowship. It's just an opportunity to get together on a regular basis with people that like to do things that you like to do. Okay, those are fellowships. Real quickly, the next couple have to do with Rotaract and Interact. I would think most Rotarians have been exposed to Rotaract and Interact, but is there anyone that doesn't understand or know what Rotaract and Interact are? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay, Julie, I see that. And any on the other side? Okay, because I can't see everybody. Tanya. Okay, real quick, and you guys can help. Would anyone like to step up and talk about giving your definition of? Let's start with Rotaract. What is Rotaract? Anybody tell me? Who's involved? Go ahead, Megan. You'll have to unmute yourself there.
So I started out originally in Rotaract when I joined Hobbs Rotary Club. It's pretty quick. They were like, "Hey, help us fill this spot." And so we always had one male and one female serving in it. And it was absolutely an awesome year. That was like, our officers that year were so amazing. They tend to be better when they're girls. The club tends to be more successful, especially at that age, when you have more female officers. And our girls had they were the sweetest, best kids, and so driven to do good in the community. And they had no problem telling their members, "Hey guys, we need a bigger presence at this place than we had." And so they were really on top of it. But it's basically a high school. I'm going over Interact.
That's Interact. Yeah, you're talking about Interact. Interact is high school students, usually 14 to 18.
Junior high and high school.
Yeah, junior high.
And middle school and high school.
Having programs even younger than that, aren't we? That's not official.
Yeah, and we've stuck with really only reaching out to our high school students and really engaging them so far at this point. Last year, of course, sucked because of COVID, but we've had car washes. They've raised money for car washes. They've walked the dogs at the adoption center. So they've done like things to raise money, and then they've done things that are just action-based and service. And they've been out there with us for Habitat for Humanity. And when they raise money, they keep it in their account. And then at the end of the year, they donate an amount of it based off how much they have to a cause that they appreciate. Like oftentimes, the adoption center or something they've worked with that year. And then they leave a chunk of funds available for the next year's club to come into. So our first year, the kids were like, we're going to donate all the money. And I was like, whoa, no, you're not. Like next year, they're going to need money. And they're like, well, we raised this. And I was like, yeah, but you guys are the seniors and you're not talking about, you got to think of the underclassmen who also raised it. And they were like, oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we want to leave the club with something. And so, and sometimes we'll get a kid, like an officer who also serves on student council and DECA and is an athlete and has all these things going on, that when they're that swamped, of course they want to be an officer because they're obviously an ambitious kid, but they can't keep up with it because they're pulled in so many different directions.
Okay. Megan, I'm going to have to interrupt you here. We're running out of time, but I want to thank you for your input. And so what Megan was talking about was Interact, okay? Ages 14 to 18. And they are sponsored by the club. Our club has an Interact club at one of their local high schools. But my original question was Rotaract. Rotaract is for a little older group, all the way from 18 to 30. And typically we find Rotaract groups where in college, okay? And so our club also sponsored a Rotaract club in Albuquerque at one of the local universities, or colleges, I should say. And the whole idea, what do you suppose? Anybody, what's the purpose of why do we do this? Why is this good for Rotary that we get our young people involved? Tanya, I think you wanted to say something. Do you want to get involved?
Well, isn't this to build future Rotarian, the future in leadership opportunities in the Rotarian-based activities? Yes.
Yeah, I call this Rotary on the hoof. Okay, let's get them started. Hopefully, they'll stick around.
Yes.
And and if not, maybe they still do good in the world just because of their experience. Okay, outstanding.
Bruce, one correction.
Go ahead.
It's ages 12 to 18 now.
Oh, that changed. Okay, 12 to 18. I'll make a note of that in my book.
Now, most of us go with the high school because of mobility issues. The kids can get themselves to projects.
Right. Okay, super. Okay, I got 1 minute left. Well, maybe not even that. But here, the last couple were two, I think that most people are youth exchange. Most people are aware of these. That's youth exchange and also RLI. Youth exchange is where we actually have students from us overseas come to the US, sponsored by families. And then RLI is the same thing. Well, RLI is actually an opportunity for local youth throughout the district to come to, in our case, to Albuquerque for their youth leadership training. Excellent programs. Again, we're trying to build up maybe, hopefully some future Rotarians, but they're learning skills, they're being educated, learning skills that they can use, as they grow older and, they get through college or whatever, and get out into the business community. All useful skills. And we always get great reviews from the students after they finished RLI. So unfortunately, I am out of time. All of these, including, there's a section that I wanted to mention, however, it's called, it's on insert RO2 in your book. It's called Be a Vibrant Club. And the reason this is in here is that there are, on the second page of that, on starting your club on a path to vibrancy, there are two of the things that you can do to be a vibrant club that involve the programs that we've been talking about. The most important one is make sure all members are involved in activities that generally interest them. Okay. And so, well, That's a lot have to do with the different programs that are available through Rotary. Okay, so that's the connection here. That and developing strong relationships with your clubs. If you've got someone who is on the fence about joining your Rotary club, you might tell them, you know, all the different programs that are available. You may strike, you know, gold there. You say, oh, I'm really interested in that. Yeah, I think this will be a really good thing for me to do, is join your club because I'm very interested in fellowships and that sort of thing. Or, you know, so I just wanted to make that clear. And Jeff, thank you very much. You can take that down. And folks, I am done, and I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, so before we get into effective leadership strategies, I need to do a couple of caveats. One is, especially for those of you who are new to the Rotary Leadership Institute, we are not a structured Rotary program like the ones that Bruce went over. We are led by Rotarians, but we are autonomous. And the benefit of being autonomous is we can be flexible in Rotary Leadership Institute curriculum, how we offer RLI, so doing it virtually like we're doing it. And so, and I can't speak for the other facilitators, but I, for one, when I'm facilitating certain modules, I will deviate from what is in your outline. So don't be concerned. It's just that each of us being autonomous may feel like there's other ways to cover the topic. So, and this is one, and I will just say, I don't think the outline is very powerful, but I love the title. Effective Leadership Strategies. For those of you who took part one, there's a leadership module in part one that really deals more with leadership style, kind of personal style. We're going to talk more about leadership strategies. And I'm going to flip over to a document that we're going to use to capture notes. Can you all see this? Just says effective leadership strategies, and there's a little outline here.
Yeah.
Just need to make sure. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So for me, and I remember when I first took RLI and I was in the first class that District 5520 had, I remember taking this module, and I've really focused on the 3 words in the title. And to me, each of those words is very powerful and significant. So I thought what would be helpful to start is let's make sure we have clarity as a group on what is meant by strategies, what is meant by effective, and what is meant by leadership. Because if we're going to talk about effective leadership strategies, it's important that all 3 of those words we agree to. So I'm going to take notes while you're talking, which means I may not see you. And please unmute and speak rather than use the chat, because I may miss that. So from your vantage point and from your experience, what are strategies?
Long-term plans.
Long-term plans. And what would long-term mean?
Something that's forward-looking, not necessarily tactical.
Got it. What else?
When I think of strategies, I think of the process of how you're going to go about it.
I'm going to put how in caps for a reason, process of how we're going to go about it. So I love the word how for strategies. That to me encompasses what a strategy is. It isn't what we're doing, it's more how. Very, very important. Okay, what else?
I was thinking about that too. I was thinking it's the method that you're going to use for success.
Yep.
I mean, I think strategy has an implication of achieving a goal.
Yep. So, so one of the reasons I'm not thrilled about the module is because it brings styles back in. And nothing here talked about style. It's long-term plans, process of how, methods for success, achieving goals. We all have styles. And by the way, as we reinforced in part one, all of us in Rotary are leaders, whether we are club presidents or committee chairs, all of us are leaders, or all of us have the opportunity to be leaders regardless of our role in a club. So, and we all have a style. Some may be very assertive, some may be more passive, some may be more accommodating, but whatever our style is, if we are going to be successful as a leader, we need to have strategies. We'll talk
And
about that. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I was going to mention the resources. We also need to, how do we go about doing it, and how are we going to utilize those said resources to meet the strategies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get the gist here. That's why I
Yeah.
really didn't want to
Yeah.
focus on style. This is about strategies, and we'll get into
Right.
some examples as we go through this. Okay.
Yeah.
What's effective mean?
Impacting.
Mhm.
Did you reach your goal?
Measurable.
And if it's okay with you all, I'm going to add to this and or desired outcome. They're kind of synonymous, but sometimes they're not, but it did what it was intended. So we can have an ineffective leadership strategy. In fact, Bruce will attest to this because he and I are in the same club. When I was club president, I mentioned to the membership that I am driven by guilt. So if I'm guilted into doing something, I will do it. But that's not an effective leadership strategy. I tried it. And the only one that felt guilty was me, and it didn't work. So the key is, it's something that it gets you to your goal or desired outcome. And as leaders, in whatever capacity we have, we're leading to get to a desired outcome. We're not leading just because we're leading. There's a purpose to it, right? And that's the purpose. So if we have effective leadership strategies, they're measurable and we get to our goals and desired outcomes. Any other input on that? That was a pretty clear definition. Anything else about effective?
Jeff, I think they're also, I don't know the right word, flexible or adaptable because of changing circumstances, that might affect and require just some changes to what we originally thought were going to happen because something turned out differently than we anticipated.
So COVID's a great example, right?
Yeah.
We're going forward, but our strategies may have shifted when everything was virtual, right? So that idea of being flexible, adaptable is important, and not be rigid, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I might add appropriate as well. Appropriate to the task.
Appropriate to task?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate on that?
Well, certain scenarios call for certain, I'm trying to think of the word, kind of like flexibility, with the flexibility, the ability to adapt to a situation, I guess. So an appropriateness to the scenario, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about that. That's great. Okay. And then what is leadership?
Provides direction.
Okay.
Motivates people to do things they might not otherwise do.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of easy to be a leader when everyone's already going forward doing what you wanted anyway, right?
Provide support.
Maintain optimism.
I love that one,
Yeah.
especially now.
Puts people in a position to succeed.
Love it.
Seeks input.
See, a lot of these were identified in the part 1 module in terms of like what leadership is, but that's great. Anything else?
Good
It's the ability. Communication. Oh.
Yep.
And
the ability to guide others to achieve their goals.
Right.
Ability.
Ability to influence, I feel. And the number one thing for a leader, they should have integrity.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is great.
And along with communication is an active listener.
Love it.
Yes.
Which, by the way, on Zoom, when I'm typing and I'm not seeing you all, it's even more important to actively listen because I'm not seeing you. So I really need to make sure I hear what you said. So I'll just say, did I capture that right or something? Because it's you've got to make sure that you know that you're being listened to. Great. Okay.
Okay,
so
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'm sorry. H on item H is not utility, it's ability.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't actively listen there. Okay. So we've got a sense of strategies, effective, and leadership. Now we can take a deeper dive into effective leadership strategies now that we kind of identified terms here. So here's a question. What are the differences, if there are any, between leadership strategies and leadership styles?
You could have the same leadership strategy, but different leadership styles could get you there.
I want to make sure I caught that.
Right. And also strategies involves groups, style is individual.
And style is going to remain. A person with a certain style is going to probably have that style throughout. It's kind of related to personality, and strategies change depending on what the desired outcome is.
So here's something to think about. So I agree with you. But here's something to think about for those of you who've done like Myers-Briggs or DISC assessments, anything like that. Styles are individual. That is true. But you can grow in your leadership style and tweak it to meet need. So if I'm a generally passive person, which I am, and I'm asked to serve as the president of my Rotary Club, I can't serve effectively being passive all the time. So part of the learning and growth of leadership, it's not changing your style, it's understanding how to adapt it to certain circumstances and people so that you can be effective regardless of your style. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is Aline. I guess for me, I always think about the what versus the how, you know, the overall strategies of what you need to do, but the leadership style is how you do it. And so it goes back to what you're saying in terms of being able to almost be a situational leader depending on the situation and making sure that you're providing what's needed in that particular time.
So the key, I think, and why I like, and again, some of you may not have taken part 1 yet, but I like that leadership styles are talked about first in part 1 because that is kind of individual. And each of us in our Rotary Club, regardless of role, can and should be a leader. And then the strategies shift into how we're going to accomplish our goals and so on, understanding that we all have style. We all have personality. Different personalities may go about things in a different way, but those strategies are kind of beyond style or they capitalize on style, but it's not limited to style?
One of
I really think that style topic is really important because you kind of think about leaders and how they're so successful in some companies, and then maybe they go to another company and they don't have that kind of success. So I think sometimes too you have to be aware of the type of group, or I don't know if that's environmental or if it's just the nature of your group. Maybe calls for a different, or I like your what you said earlier, Jeff, your natural style versus an adapted style that's needed to be successful in a leadership role with a certain group.
So I was having a conversation yesterday with a gal who actually runs the Clifton Strengths department for the university here. And she and I were talking about the 5 love languages. And I don't know if any of you guys have done it, but it's just thinking about the style of leadership, like transactional with reward. Some people view so being rewardative as the style, but the strategy might be different depending on person.
Right.
So one person might feel that recognition, like public recognition, is the reward, whereas another person might feel that a bonus is a reward, or a spending time with them is a reward, or it's just kind of interesting, like tying that conversation to this conversation, that how you, it's exactly, I think, the what versus the how.
Right. Yeah. So several of you have already mentioned this, and to me, it's critical, which is, who are we leading? What do we know about them? Right? We're not monolithic. And I will just say, for those of you who are presidents-elect, there's a few of you, correct?
Yes.
One of the best things you can do this year is observe the membership. Who are the idealists? Who are the quiet ones? Who are the ideas people? Who are the naysayers, right? The better you understand the membership, the who you're leading, whether you're happen to be a club president or you're just someone that wants the club to move in a certain direction, you want to know, you want to understand them, right? And capitalize on what you know about them to develop an effective leadership strategy. So what do we know about who we are leading that is very important in determining what our strategy is going to be?
I think who we are leading, most of them are men. So it's interesting that Rotary is trying to get out of just being a elite men's club to enveloping, lots of different people. So those people being women, people of color, religion, that sort of thing. So we are now, I think, we're going forward with a more inclusive ideal.
Right. So, four-way test here, we can be honest and truthful. If most are men, what does that imply about a leadership strategy? How do we use that information to develop what we think is going to be an effective leadership strategy if most of the members are men?
It's tough because style changes how women communicate and how men communicate.
And we can be honest here. I love men. I work better with women. There's a different dynamic. And I do find often that it's easier to build a team and work with women. Again, it's just me, but we're being truthful here. a little more open-minded, not quite as stubborn, stuck in their ways. So, but that's the kind of thing, again, if you are a president-elect or you're someone that's going to be in a leadership position, if most of your members are men, observe them. Are they open? Or are they kind of stuck in their way? I mean, it doesn't mean women aren't, but there are human tendencies, right? What else do we know about who we are leading here?
Jeff, I think the size of the club makes a big difference, because if you have a very small club where you can know all the different individuals, well, you can vary your style to go to those individuals. But if you have a very large club, you really can't do that.
And if I may, it's style and strategy.
Right.
Right. So if we're dealing with a large group of people, and we talked before about influence, right? That's kind of a key to this, is we're trying to drive a group of people in a certain direction. Well, the larger the group, it's like, are you moving a hill or a mountain, right? Yeah. More people, it's a bigger mountain. Now, they may be very receptive, which would be great, but if they're not, you've got more influence to do because you've got more people. Okay, so Eileen in the chat hit on another biggie. Do you want to unmute and say what it is, because it's so significant?
Sure. Or I think the other thing that's important to remember, that you're dealing with volunteers, people that are giving their time. And so sometimes I've been in situations where people come in and are demanding of people, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm volunteering my time here. So I think, again, that's a special skill that you have to remember when you're dealing with Rotarians. We are volunteers.
We are volunteers.
Yeah.
We're not, this ain't for pay.
Right. I mean, so, you get paid in a different way, right? In terms of the reward that you reap. But I just think you have to be sensitive to that and aware of that. Because I've been in situations where people are being very demanding, and it's like, well, wait a minute.
So think about, and maybe one or two of you have experienced this, depending upon your corporate life or your work life. But if you are a leader in your organization where people are getting paid, and they have a job description, and they have performance reviews and all those kind of things, how you lead them, strategy, may be different than how you're leading volunteers.
Yes.
Someone had their hand raised. Was that Warren?
Yeah, that's me. And I just wanted to bring in some parallels with the fundraising world. One of the most important things that we do as fundraisers is try and understand what relationship our donors want to have with our organization. And there are usually about a dozen different types of relationships that people are interested in. And I think bringing that to looking around in our club and trying to better understand what relationship each individual wants to have with the club, it's similar to why do you stay? And then finding ways to build on that, to try and give members more of what they want to get out of the club. And I think it's an important concept to bring to our own clubs and our own ways of looking around.
Yep. Gordon, you had your hand raised?
Yes, I think we need to understand what people's interests are and align those interests as well as their skills with the appropriate club activity.
Yep. Okay, so as I said, this is not what's in your outline. But think about, just as last point, understanding members' interests and skills. Well, and again, I'm specifically thinking about presidents-elect, but it's for everyone. What's the best way to understand members' interests and skills?
You talk with them, find out their why. What I find in, being involved in a couple different Rotary clubs is, you've got some that are interested in really the fellowship and getting together for that weekly meeting. And you've got others that, while they have that interest, their main focus is giving back, the service aspect that Rotary has. And it's really getting to talk with them. And then also that gives you the opportunity to know who you can lean on, maybe for different things you want to do within the club.
So, and also there's, and this gets into a different, we're gonna do a segue in a second, but this is also where member surveys can be helpful.
Jeff, I was just going to say that a few years ago in our club, the vocational chair had us all fill out forms about ourselves, what our interests are, what our experiences, what we like to do, what are our hobbies. And then he compiled that in a 3-ring notebook for all of us. And I learned so much about members that I've known for a long time, but didn't know this about them. And so that really engendered people being able to ask people to do participate in a way that we wouldn't have thought to ask them before.
So we're gonna keep going, but I think if I can state it in a reinforcing way, knowing that these are volunteers, it is incumbent upon us as leaders to understand them as much as possible.
Yes.
And we may not get 100% buy-in on things, but the more buy-in we get, the more successful we're going to be. Here's another interesting question. What are we leading them to do or to be? So usually we're leading a group to do something. We're gonna do a community service project. We're gonna do a membership campaign. Sometimes it's leading people to be, as a group. We want to be the best Rotary Club in our district. Maybe that's our goal. So what are we leading them to do or to be? What, you know, if you're leading people, the implication is you're leading them for something. And we talked up here, where was it? Achieving a goal. And there was something else. Yeah, did you reach your goal and or desired outcome? So what are we leading, if we're leaders in a Rotary Club, what are we leading them to do or to be? Gordon, you have your hand raised.
Yes, what I like to think of is I would like our Rotary Club being them, our Rotary Club to be the place where people go for help.
So that's a leading to be.
Yes.
Right. So again, it's just something to think about. And you know, we'll do a few more examples, but there should be a verb after leading that reflects what you want a group to do or to be. And keep in mind, we may be leading a club committee for something specific, like the membership committee or the public image committee. We may be leading the club. And remember, every one of us can be a leader. So I think 1 or 2 of you have only been Rotarians for like a month or 2. Is that right? Yeah. So what a great opportunity to be a leader, being new, saying, you know, I've got new ideas. I have a different perspective. And so regardless of role, each of us can be a leader. And I think, to be honest with you, I think that's what the whole Rotary Leadership Institute is about. That's why it's for anyone, is how can we be a better leader in our Rotary environment and even outside of the environment? I want engagement. Okay, that was in the chat.
That was me.
Well,
and that looks different for everybody, you know,
right,
in terms of what they want to do and why they join.
So
but I would hope that
down,
would be something that they would be.
Right. So I wrote down, and you know, we did not plan this ahead of time, but I wrote down a series of questions that I thought we can cover. And one of the questions is, and why don't we shift to it for a minute? What are the connections between effective leadership strategies and member engagement? So since I don't want to put you on the spot, Eileen, but since you mentioned member engagement, what's the connection between the two?
Well, I would hope whatever strategies that the group has come up with would involve opportunities for members to get engaged. Okay. I guess that's what I would say, is that whatever strategies are out there, because again, we're a service organization and most people join knowing that, And so again, that's going to look different for everybody as far as how they want to participate and how they want to give of service.
All right, so let me ask you all this. What is the likelihood that we are going to have an engaged Rotary Club if we do not have effective leadership?
If,
Low.
when I add, you model the behaviors you want to see.
Slim. Slim and none.
Yeah. Now there are people, model behaviors you want others to follow. There are people that are naturally engaged. That's just how they are. Anything that they join or they're a part of, they're all in, right? They're awesome because it almost doesn't matter what the strategy is. You've got engaged members. The problem is, it's a problem, not everyone's like that. So one of the indicators of effective leadership strategy is how engaged are the members. And you can tell, right? Now, if I have an idea, so again, Bruce will attest to this. I basically said to the club, I said, I have a lot of ideas, and I'm gonna continue to throw out these ideas to you all for feedback. I don't expect 100%. That's not realistic. So I always had a goal of like 30%. So for every 10 ideas that I threw out to the club, 3 of them were accepted and 7 were rejected. The 3 that were accepted, they were engaged about them. The 7 that they rejected, they were engaged in their rejection. They didn't just say, Jeff, thank you, but no. They were engaged defiantly to say, no, we're not gonna do that. So if you are not sure if you have effective leadership or not, and you're serving in a role where you're trying to be a leader, look to the members. How engaged are they? And a lot of that is observation. Are they paying attention? Are they involved in the discussions? Do they agree to be part of whatever groups need to be put together for the club to accomplish what it needs to accomplish? Or are they just, paying their dues and having a meal, right? Does that make, so Eileen, you brought it up. Does that fit, or are there other things to consider about member engagement here?
No, I'm good with that. That makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, so again, we want to achieve an outcome, but looking at observing the members is a great indicator of whether we have effective leadership strategy or not. And again, I don't want to speak for any of you, but it took me a while to come to that 30% conclusion. Initially, I thought, geez, I've got great ideas. I expect every single one of them, people are going to go, oh my God, Jeff, that's awesome. No, that does not happen. 30%, hey, if you're a baseball player and you're batting 300, that's a good batting average, right? Okay. We've got a couple more and about 10 minutes. Key consideration. Control versus influence. So that's something that is brought up in the module a little bit, although I kind of paraphrased it. And again, this may go back to the notion that everyone's a volunteer. As a leader or as someone that wants to grow in their leadership, how do we consider control versus influence? What does that suggest, or what does that imply?
Okay, what I would say to that, and I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I would rather influence someone than control them. Because if I influence you to do something, take an action, first of all, it's your decision and you're going to be more willing to continue, versus if I have to control you, which is what I do as a parent, then again, my analogy is always you can't push a rope.
Right.
So when I influence you, I'm bringing you.
Right. And again,
when I'm
I think because
controlling you.
Right. again, because they're volunteers, it's even more important, isn't it?
Yes.
Gordon, you had your hand raised.
Yes, you have to provide direction and leadership, but you have to be careful that you're not a control freak.
Yeah.
You have to give people room to move and contribute.
I think it's one of the reasons why I agree with Gordon, and also with something Julie said about the individual as a leader. If you're too controlling, number one, you're going to burn out. Secondly, I think influence part of it is just creating followers. And in our clubs, to round out, if you're a president and you want to round out all these committees and everything, you want to be able to have the influence to create these followers who really want to do that job. You're talking about engagement, and what you can't afford is just to kind of control the process by putting people in positions that maybe don't have the experience, or even we'll go back to the engagement, if you will, to really carry those out. So I don't know, that all kind of weaves together a little bit. And I especially like Julie's thing, you can't push the rope. And yeah. I think that's really true. And sometimes I see that in some people that are control freaks, as they delegate some of this stuff, but it doesn't happen just the way they want it, or as fast as they want it, or maybe they didn't give good direction. It all comes back to them. And that doesn't develop leaders. That doesn't develop leaders in your club.
The thing I love about ownership, and it comes up in other RLI modules, but I think it's relevant here too. It fosters the notion of sustainability. If I'm too commanding and controlling, as soon as I take my foot off the pedal, everything stops. But if people own it, if I've done a good job of influencing, making the case, then it's more likely going to continue and be kind of sustainable. It's
Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we have to be careful though, because there are times as leaders that we need to step in and make decisions.
Yep.
So, if we can't do totally away with control, because that's what we're there for. Right. And so sometimes we just have to be able to step in and make decisions, even though I totally agree that it's much better to be an influencer, especially when you have a group where there are people disagreeing and things. We're going to have to make decisions at times.
That is true. That's a great point. Now, this gets us to our last question. I'm looking, we've got 5 minutes. So as we preface this, Rotary Leadership Institute is for everyone. People that have a club role, like incoming president, committee chair, they have a unique opportunity to be an effective leader, but everyone in the club can be a leader, right? So what does the club role, or how does having a club role affect our interest or need to lead? And the reason I'm asking that is because sometimes we still have to make decisions. That's even more true if you have a club role, right? If you're a club president, sometimes you have to make a decision. If I'm a new member and I want to be a leader and I throw out an idea and the club doesn't buy it, I don't really have to make a decision because I don't have that responsibility within the club to make a decision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what does
Yes.
What does the notion of having the club role do to affect our interest, need, capabilities to lead?
Well, it heightens it. It makes it more important for me.
If we have a club role, why, it's formalized that we are the ones that people look to.
Right. And I will just say, I have seen, and you probably have too, people in the club, and again, I love it when it's a new member, who step up just because they're interested and serve in a leadership role, and people will follow them. In some cases, they follow them more than the club president, right? And I don't know if your clubs have that, but those really passionate, driven people can build a lot of influence without having that official club role.
Right.
And if anything, if that happens and the club president feels like it's going against the grain of what the club is trying to accomplish, that's where you can have a problem. And that's where the president may have to make a decision. It's like, well, that's a great idea, but maybe not this year because we've got to focus on, you know, A, B, and C. That's part of the notion of having this very interesting, driven volunteer workforce in our club, right? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing only because we've got a minute or two left. Just to kind of close this out, and again, for those of you who haven't taken the first part yet, style is important. We all have personalities, and they are what they are. They can be tweaked, but we are who we are. But it's important to think beyond our personal style and think about strategy. So for myself, I would say knowing my style of leadership, how am I going to apply that to help the club accomplish its goals? So they're both important. And I think if you're already serving in a leadership role or you're thinking about serving a leadership role, just kind of balance those two, that kind of individual personal attribute and an overall strategy. And if you do that, you will be much more successful. Any final questions before we go to a break?
Jeff, there was one question that Catherine asked from Towson about how different clubs might choose their leadership, whether it's elections or sorry you missed the meeting, so you're going to be president. So a couple of folks have thrown in or added their comments on that and how their leadership might be chosen or elected for the coming year. So any words that you might want to share on that?
So I'm going to assume that we're talking about official club leadership, meaning club
Yes, sir.
presidents.
Yes, sir.
Look, small clubs, I think one of you had mentioned that you were president 5 years in a row, something like that.
Yes.
Part of the challenge, and by the way, what I mentioned, I added it in one of your comments, it's incumbent upon us to grow future leaders. We should have succession plans. We can't always rely on the same people. So I would say the notion is build up, give people in your clubs, especially ones that are new, opportunity to learn and to grow. RLI is a part of that. If you want to have sustainable leadership in a Rotary Club, you want to have that succession plan, that building up leaders, giving them opportunities. I will say for District 5520, in many cases, we have what we have a small bench. We haven't done an effective job building up others. And so as a result, relying on the same people quite often. Again, it's not 100%, but I think generally speaking, you want to identify those people who are expressing interest, who are engaged, who have ideas, and provide them with opportunity. That sounds like an idealistic answer. Worst case scenario, you just pick people, but I mean, it may work, and if it does, that's great. But I think the goal of a club is to kind of have that pipeline to leadership that is robust and is always active. Anyone else have input on that?
Jeff, if I might add a comment, this is Nikki from Lincoln, South Lincoln, Nebraska. One of the things that we do in our club is what we call happy dollars at the beginning of the meeting. Everybody has a chance to share something, put a happy dollar into our Polio Plus. But what that does is it allows the other members to get to know them. You know, because anytime you say something, people get to know you, they get to know your personality, they get to know, you know, if you're willing to share. And then we have open nominations for the board, and you'll find that the people that have been in the meetings and have seen people give happy dollars, they know each other better. That builds up our leadership there that way. It's easy, but it helps.
Yep. And I think the other piece of this is if your club has strong committees with people who are actually serving on those committees, there's opportunities for learning and growth. If you have committees of one, then you don't have as many opportunities. So the more people get involved, the more they'll just kind of naturally bubble up. It just happens. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, we have a nominating committee specifically for president. But one of the things that we make a point of doing is remembering that some people are very forward and you know they're interested in leadership, but there are a lot of great leaders out there that just are waiting for someone to ask them. So we always discuss all our members, and then we'll go talk to them and say, hey, you know, we think that you have a great opportunity for leadership. You know, are you interested? And it's amazing how often sometimes people will go, yeah, I've thought about that before, or I would be, but they're just not the ones that are in your face about it.
Isn't it just like when we were talking about membership before, that some people joined just because they were asked, they just didn't go forward? It's the same kind of thing, right? You have to ask. Kathy, we are due for a break.
Yes, we are indeed. So Jeff, thanks so much. And Bruce, thanks to you as well. Then great presentations for this start us off this morning. Let's take a break and we will rejoin at 9:50. Yeah. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And thanks to all our participants and questions. And yeah, stretch your legs, get some fresh air, and come back with a smile.